Hello, beautiful soul sister, and welcome back to another episode of the Soul Powered Podcast. I'm your host, Rebecca Kiger. I'm a trauma-informed master mindset and money coach, as well as a financial expert of over 17 years. I have spent my entire adult life studying the difference between successful and unsuccessful people, and I plan on sharing all of the things with you on this journey together. This podcast is called the Soul Powered Podcast because it's my desire to share with you how to create a life that is powered by your soul, not by societal standards or what everyone else in your life tells you that you should be doing, but actually powered by your soul. The reason you'd want to do this is because I believe that this is the fastest way to unlock your portal to prosperity and become what I call the wildly wealthy woman. This is the portal that once you enter it, you gain access to the prosperity, abundance, wealth, time freedom, experiences, fulfillment that are your birthright. I don't believe that you came here to build someone else's dreams. I believe you came here to live your soul-powered life and live it to the fullest. And I plan on sharing with you exactly how to do that during our time together. So thank you so much for being here. I know we're going to have so much fun together today. Let's dive in. Hi, my loves, and welcome back to another episode of the Soul Powered Podcast. I'm your host, Rebecca, and I'm so excited for a special guest that I have for you guys today, who is also a money expert. So I don't have a ton of these that I brought on for you guys. I'm so excited. I know we're going to go down some incredible rabbit holes and some great conversations. So welcome to the show, Rachel Coons. How are you?
Hey, I'm so good. Thanks for having me, Rebecca.
Of course, I'm so glad that you're here. Rachel and I met in the mastermind that we're in together. So I'm really excited. And even in this conversation, we'll get to know a little bit more about each other. So I'm really, just looking forward to diving in. So Rachel, if you don't mind just letting us know a little bit more about you. Like, who is it that you help? How do you help them? What do you do in the world?
Yeah, so I'm Rachel. I'm a mom of 4 kids and wife. We live in Northern California outside of Sacramento. And I have always been a stay-at-home mom. Ever since I had children, I left my career to be home with my children. And it wasn't until 2020 when we were in tons of debt that I decided to take a seat at the table of my finances in our marriage and realized at that time, as I was having my fourth baby, that I didn't want to go out and get a job to bring in money to help our financial situation and pay off debt. But there were so many things that I could do as a stay-at-home mom to help our money story. And so I started to get really intentional with our spending. Obviously, the first thing that a mom does is like, you probably should be budgeting a little bit. But I felt really overwhelmed with budgeting as a mom of 4. I was busy and it just felt really stressful to try and budget. And so what I did was looked at our finances, looked at our spending, and there was one area of our spending that was higher than I wanted it to be, and that was our grocery spending. We were spending $1,200 a month for our family of 6, which isn't even that crazy, but it felt like the one area that maybe I could actually do something about. And so I started to try different things. Some things worked, some things didn't, but I was able to cut our grocery spending by $500 a month. And for the
Wow.
first time, and still eat healthy and still, it didn't take me a ton of time. I wasn't couponing. And for the first time, I felt empowered with my husband and that I was actually a teammate in our financial success. That $500 a month gave us more wiggle room in our budget. It helped us pay off debt. It helped us save for a house. And so I started sharing what I was doing on social media and it just kind of caught fire. And, people started asking me what I was doing. I created a method that I teach from. So I've been doing that for about 5 years and then created a whole course and program for people how to cut their grocery bill by literally $600 to $1,000 a month while still eating healthy and all the things. But while I was doing that, I went on my own journey and experience with money and how I experience money. Because I've literally been, raised poor, shopping at thrift stores my whole life, never getting anything brand new, to having more money and to having an excess of money. And one thing that I realized through this whole process is that it doesn't matter how much money you have if you don't fix the way that you experience money. And I noticed that in our members, that they were saving all this money, but it wasn't actually helping them financially. They weren't actually using that money to do good, to pay off debt, to invest, and all those things. So I went back to the drawing board at the end of last year and was like, we got to rewrite how we're doing this and how I help people. For sure, I help people save so much money on groceries, but it's so much more than that. And now I have a community of moms. We call it the Money Mom Club, where we help women control their finances. We help them take a seat at the table and do so much more than just the things that moms are expected to do. And it's so rewarding and so beautiful. And I've just loved this experience.
Oh my God, I love that. I didn't know that all about you.
Yeah.
So we have a
Yeah.
similar upbringing. Like that's so cool. And I just love that you get it because I've tried to have this conversation and it's something that people I think get, but they don't get, which is more money is not going to solve or heal your
Mm.
relationship to it.
Oh,
And
yeah. Oh,
it's
yeah.
like Jim Carrey, I think, is the one who says, like, I wish everybody could get rich and famous to realize that rich and fame is not the answer. And I have seen this firsthand being in the financial world for 2 decades, where I'm watching people who've had more money than you or I will ever spend, like, could ever spend, right? And still feeling anxiety around it, still not, or maybe their other areas of their life aren't good, and, they're still depressed and unfulfilled. And I just have realized a really long time ago that, yeah, more money's not gonna, it's not gonna fix the root cause of our relationship with it. And even if we are saving money, like you said, are we gonna then in turn make good financial decisions automatically without really being guided or knowing how to do that? And I don't believe our system teaches us that, right? So I
Mm-mm.
love your story and how incredible with 4 babies, like that you did all that.
Yeah.
So how
Yeah.
did you like yeah, where does the time come from for you to be able to do all of
No,
this?
I'm a little bit crazy. That's all.
That's okay.
Just a
That's
tad
okay.
bit crazy.
I love that. I love that so much. And I'm like, yeah, I love that you get all of these things. And I also feel like, okay, so let's talk a little bit about what it is that you're doing with your clients now. So we started with like the method around shopping, which I definitely want to like learn. I know that since ever I've been hearing your message and what you've been talking about, I'm like, that is so because yeah, groceries are incredibly, costly now, right? That's a huge part
Totally.
of it and what you do. But what are some of the other things that you've noticed now that you've really dove into like the money stories and how people are programmed? Like, what is it that you're noticing is some of the things that people are struggling with when they first come to you, as it relates to
Yes.
like their habits and behaviors, I guess.
Perfect question. Okay. So, what I kind of was able to chunk it down into when I noticed why someone is financially successful and why someone isn't. And there were 5 things that I kind of picked out. And those 5 things are what we, hash out in the Money Mom Club. The first, we save money on groceries because saving money on groceries is the fastest and easiest way to have extra money in your wallet,
Mhm.
right? So we can get you saving $800 a month on groceries. That's going to give you tangible cash without going out and getting a job, without, actually increasing the money coming in. That also sets the foundation for intentional spending. And we could talk all day about what intentional spending is and how to be an intentional spender. But it's basically just opening up this idea that we get to decide how much we want to spend on the things that are important to us. So we do that first. Then we also need to learn how to take care of our money in the world of budgeting and how to set budgets and how to pay off debt and all those things. So saving money on groceries, budgeting, paying off debt. The third thing is investing. And I see this a lot with women, especially because it is such a masculine space. Because it is just, I mean, you know this, Rebecca, as a financial advisor, it's always men. It's always men telling us what to do and how to do it. And a lot of the times it just feels so confusing and so overwhelming. And I'm like, it doesn't actually have to be confusing and overwhelming. It can be very simple as creating a retirement account and putting money in it every single month. So that's the next thing we tackle. Then the other one is how do you actually create income from home with side gigs, side hustles? There's lots of ways that moms can make money from home, like over 50 different ways that moms can make money. So we do that. And then the final piece, which is one that we love, is money mindset. And it kind of brings it all together of like we give you the tangibles and then we give you the actual experience and the thoughts and the way that our money stories, our experiences shape how we view money, because we know that it is the most important thing is our money mindset. So those five things are what I think is the key to real financial success.
I would agree with that 100%. And I love that you have a lot of the tangible, practical steps. I think that for many years, that's all I did was the tangible, practical steps. And then I realized like people, like you said, weren't taking action on them or they'd still find a way to self-sabotage. So bringing in like that money mindset, your relationship with money, your money stories, all of that. It's literally like you said, it's everything, I think, right? Because you can have all of the strategies in the world. You can have you can open 50 million investment accounts if you want to, right?
Mm-hmm,
And you can
mm-hmm.
start putting money in all of them. But if you don't actually address the root cause, then it's more likely that you're going to self-sabotage or find ways to spend that money and all of the things. So I love that you're helping women take their power back as it relates to money. We are so aligned in this, and I love the process. I love everything that you're doing, and I think it's incredible. So let's talk about this concept of intentional spending, because I really feel like that's intuitively where I'm being pulled. What does it mean to be an intentional spender?
It's really simple for me. It's, do your priorities align with your spending?
Mhm.
Because truthfully, we all have very different priorities in life, right? I may want to focus on a new car or being able to pay my kids' college, or could be experiences and memories, and somebody else could be something completely different. And it's not until we can lay out the values, what do we actually value in life, and then make sure our money is going towards the things that we value, that's where you find peace with your spending. That's where you find where everything aligns and it doesn't feel restricting. It doesn't feel like budgeting is just telling you where you can't spend your money. It's actually telling you where you can spend your money. It's giving you permission to spend
Mm,
on certain things. And I love that, because the scarcity idea of like, if I am budgeting, then I don't get to take that Disneyland vacation. No, no one's going to actually do that. You're right. Like, we don't want to feel like we can't spend our money in the things that we want to spend it on. So that's, in a
ugh.
nutshell, what I would say.
I love that. I really do because I feel like aligning your spending with your values. And this is the thing is sometimes our values will change and sometimes like so I always have people when they're going to make a decision, my clients, I'm like, if you want to spend this, right, does it feel more abundant to have that thing or does it feel more abundant to have that in your travel fund? Like you said, like what are your values? What does it align with? And I think that sometimes that can change. And sometimes we can put money towards certain things, maybe that travel fund, and then the next time, maybe I want that thing. Maybe it makes me feel really abundant to buy this new sweater. I don't know, because I don't have any luxury sweaters and I want this one. Like, we can't decide that for our clients, right? It's all about helping them tap into that. And so I really do love that you do that. And I think it's a form of self-care, wouldn't you say? Like you said,
Totally.
budgeting is like we look at it and we're also programmed to it's so heavy. Like all these conversations
Mm,
around money, aren't they just so heavy from the time that we're
mm.
like introduced to this stuff? But I love that we're making it light and it's an act of self-care, right?
I totally like, actually, the month of March in the Money Mom Club is money mindset. So I just got off a call literally before we recorded this podcast about money. And one of the things that we talked about is that money is pervasive in our world, right? Almost every single decision that we make day in and day out can be rooted in money and how we experience money and how we feel about money. And so doing this work, that's why it's so powerful. And that's why it can lead to stress and it can lead to peace. And so when we can really get to like the root issues of how we show up when it comes to money, it can change everything in our world. And that's why I'm like, yeah, we got to help people do that, right?
Wow. Yeah, we do because I think that a lot of times people will just believe that, okay, this is just the way my parents did it, or this is the way that I learned, or this is what society told me to do. So I'm just going to do it this way. And that doesn't necessarily always lead to where you want to go. And I think that, especially like the conversation around debt. So you brought up budgeting and paying off debt and things. I'd love to hear your take on debt because I just believe that like debt is just a choice to pay something back over time. Like I feel like our
Hmm.
society has conditioned us to believe that like we shouldn't be able to live our lives until all of our debt's paid off and like you better
Mm,
not have a student loan or you're like, and it's like, come on. I just think it's bullshit. So I'd
yeah.
love to just hear your
Oh,
thoughts on
let's
like
go,
debt.
Rebecca.
Let's
I
do
love
it.
this. Okay, so I think we very much align with this. Not, and I break this down that not all debt is the same, right?
Yeah.
There's actually good debt.
Yes.
And as someone who has financed quite a few things in life, I don't feel bad about it because
Yeah.
it's an intentional decision that like I would much rather pay a monthly payment for my car than spend $50,000 up front and not be able to leverage that money in the stock market in my investments later on, right? So there's so much power in being able to leverage finances. When I talk about debt, though, I really am talking about high interest debt.
Hmm.
Truthfully, it's credit card debt, right?
Yeah.
Credit card debt is insane. The amount of money that they're charging you on interest is should be highway robbery, right? And the average American family is in like $11,000 of credit card debt. And if you're paying 24% interest on that debt, it just feels like it's burying you, right? So when I say debt, that's really what I mean. That not all debt is the same. And I 100% agree with you that there is nothing wrong with leveraging your financial situation. We do it all the time with a house, and nobody ever feels bad about that. No one's
Right.
ever expected, my house was $1 million. No one ever expects to pay $1 million for a house. It's
Yeah.
just the same thing to do.
Yeah, it is. And I love that. Well, I think that it's important. So what you're teaching about debt, even how, mortgages and secured debt, I think it's still important to have a plan to pay it down. So I love that you're
Right.
helping people strategically with that aspect because it's so, so, so crucial. And I think a lot of the voices that we're hearing in this industry, I won't name any names, but a lot of the masculine people.
Name the names, Rebecca. Spill the tea.
So the Dave Ramseys of the world who are going to shame us. And it's okay because I know that there are people who have used the systems. And listen, hey, if it
Totally.
works for
Totally.
you, I
Yep.
know my clients who have come to me and like they've gotten out of debt using these systems. And so there's nothing wrong with it. I want to preface with that if it works for you, go with it. But I don't subscribe to the whole I've got to shame myself, feel bad about the fact that I've spent this money leveraged, like you said, it's a leveraging tool. And wealthy people, I will tell you guys, I've been doing this a long time. Wealthy people use debt all the freaking time. They'd so much rather use the bank's money than their own when it comes to strategic certain decisions, right? And so no one is looking at a wealthy person who's taking out a loan for $1 million to start a business or start another business or a real estate, whatever it is, thinking that that's a bad decision. I think a lot of it starts with, us who I really think that debt, the reason that this conversation is so charged is I just believe that the system has having people believe that they shouldn't be doing this to keep the middle class or the lower class even stuck and staying in that same
Mm-hmm.
cycle because that they're afraid to take a chance. They're afraid to invest. They're afraid to buy a house. They're afraid to buy a car. Or afraid to invest in a business because there's so much shame around it. Meanwhile, like I know being in this industry as long as I have to, and I'm sure when you turned 18, you were getting immediately credit card applications in the mail. Hey, you're pre-approved for this. My daughter just turned 19. She gets them all the time. So it's like the second that you turn 18, they're like, here you go, get into debt. And then the moment that you do, it's like, oh no, you shouldn't have done that. And you're going to be in these shackles for the rest of your life. So I think that we need people like you teaching people strategically how to get out of this situation. And we need to remove the shame from the conversation, in my opinion.
Oh, totally. And there's so much shame with money. There's so in debt and all the things. And money is so emotionally charged. And there's our experience with money and how we feel around money, and then what money actually is. When we
Yeah.
can separate the two and say, hey, what you're feeling around money is not actually reality, right? It's just your thoughts and your experiences. And we can start to unwind that pent up ball of yarn. We start to pull the string, right? We just pull the string and unwind the yarn. We can realize that money is energy, right? Money is energy. It's a flow of energy. And how can we have really positive experiences? There was something that we talked about today in our call, which I think your listeners might appreciate, is that there's two different types of ways we make decisions in life. There is the reward towards pleasure, right? We want to go towards pleasure and we want to stay away from pain. And our subconscious is what drives both of those decisions. And our job as humans to stay alive is survival. It's not actually success. We're always just trying to stay alive. And if our subconscious views money as a painful thing, as something that is negative, as stressful, that means our subconscious is going to repel it away from you. And if we could view it as something positive, as pleasure, then we will move towards it. So you may not even doing it, self-sabotaging, pushing yourself away from money because of the stories and the way that you've been viewing money your whole life. And when we can really bring that subconscious to consciousness and rewrite how we feel, you can actually attract it to you.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like you were just with me like 2 hours ago when I was recording some modules for my upcoming program. So yeah, I love it. This is so aligned. And so can you share with us, because I think that a lot of people look at individuals who have taken the leap, right? We're both entrepreneurs. We're both teaching about money. We're obviously both successful around money. And I think a lot of people will say it's easy for you to say. And
Oh,
I just
totally.
love that you also came from like a poor background, because I don't see a ton of examples of that. And so for a long time, that was my story too. Like it's easy for other people to say because they didn't have to go overcome what I had to overcome to get here.
Mm,
So
mm.
can we just like normalize this conversation? Like what are some of the things that you used to believe about money before you ever got to this place? And let's just like normalize that. And maybe how did you start to shift all of that?
The honestly, the biggest thing was that money is evil. And
Mm,
that money, like people who want money are greedy and they're bad people. And if you want to be a good person, you can't have money. So
mm,
that was one that really stuck with me. The other one is that you have to work really hard to make
yeah.
a lot of money. And that means that you're going to have to give up, staying home with your babies and working 80 hours a week in order to make really good money. And that money is in short supply. That there's only so much money that can go around,
Yes.
and that's it. I think those were probably the big three for
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah, those are definitely, yeah, I've had to deal with all of those too. So I love that. So how do you feel about money now? Like, what are some of the thoughts and the ways of being that you have around money now? Let's just kind of show that transformation and what's actually possible.
Well, I also want to speak, yes, I 100% I'll share that, but I also want to say that, like, as somebody who has worked through money issues and rewritten this, I'm still doing the work.
Yeah.
Like, you could say I'm on the other side of this, but am I really? Because there's still things that I notice. Like, even something I said yesterday that my husband called me out on. He's like, why would you say that? There's still
Mm,
things that I'm having to bring to consciousness and say, whoa, like, why did I say that? Am I still holding on to this belief? I will say, though, that the work that I did, okay, so the reason that my husband and I even like jumped into this money mindset experience and trying to rewrite our experience with money was we were making the most amount of money. We had the most amount of money available, and we were both like so stressed around money. And I was like, what is going on? Like, we are the most financially, like, we've been in forever, and we're still feeling this way. So we need to do something to fix this. So that was what started it. Now I will say, I don't feel like money, and this is the biggest result transformation that I could ask for anybody, is I do not feel like money runs my life.
mm,
Money does not make me feel anything
yeah.
for the most part. I'm not perfect,
Yeah. Yeah. Same.
but I don't give energy to money like I used to.
Hmm.
Instead, I let money flow from me and to me
Mm,
without thought and letting it take my power.
mm.
I don't give it power in my life like I used to. And that is life changing for sure.
Oh my God. It's such a beautiful way to phrase it, because yeah, it's like a lot of people do. We're taught to look outside of ourselves for the answers. We're taught, like I remember the first time my mentor had asked me, and this is years and years ago, how much money would you want to make if you could make any amount of money in the world? And I remember being so dumbfounded by the question because I was so limited at the time. And I'm like, what do you
Mm,
mean? Don't you just go to work and then they just pay you a certain amount? Like I didn't even
right.
realize that we were a co-creative part of this process. I didn't even think that that was a thing. I didn't think you could just determine how much money you could make because I always
Mm.
believed that, the power was outside of me, right? So I love that. So if anyone is interested in getting started with this journey and wanting to learn like these practical, tangible steps and how to save money on groceries and how to start budgeting, investing, getting into this real place of like, this is the Soul Powered podcast. So we're talking about ways that you can make money in alignment with your soul's path. And I love to bring on guests who have done that, but you're also teaching other people how to do that too. And I love that part too. So if someone is interested in learning more about you, tell them a little bit about like where they can find you, what's going on in your world right now. Just kind of walk us through a little bit of that.
Yeah, I kind of talked a little bit like the community that I host, but I am also on Instagram and social media. It's Hey Rachel Coons. You can find me on Instagram. And I also have a podcast, so you can come listen to episodes on the podcast. Like I said, we really talk what we focus on starting with is the saving money on groceries. And then we dive deeper into all of those. So I do have a free training on what my method is, how I save members so much money on groceries. And that's just heyrachelcoons.com/class. So
Awesome.
you can go register for that anywhere.
We'll put that in the show notes too. So I would love, I mean, thank you so much. This has been such an incredible conversation, and I feel like we could genuinely probably go for like hours,
We
but we
totally
will
could.
spare all of you the rest of your day. But like, share with me any final thoughts or anything really that like, is there anything I didn't ask about that you want to share, or anything coming through that you feel like would be really valuable for our listeners?
Hmm.
As we
Hmm.
plan today?
Okay, I will say, as someone who really likes to get tangible with things, like sometimes we talk so high and like you can't see what I'm doing, but I'm like waving my hands above my head. Like we talk like in thoughts and feelings and sometimes it's like, okay, give me the tangible stuff.
Yeah.
We need both, right? We need to be able to do both. We need the tangible, we need the cerebral and the thought process and the mindset. And those are both, it's when we can combine those together that we actually create magic. And yeah, I just think as someone who maybe is a little bit overwhelmed by this conversation or feels like, oh, this is really like how do I make it actually work for me, is we can do both work. We can focus on the tangible, but we can also really talk about how our thoughts shape our reality. And I think that's the most powerful thing that we can do for sure.
You're so right. We need both 1000%. We need the energetic and the strategic. There, you can't create anything without having both. So I love that so much. Thank you so much, Rachel. This has been such a blast having you on. We'll probably, honestly, I would have to assume that at some point we would do a part two because I really feel like I'd love to have you come back as your business evolves and as you are like diving even deeper into this work. So I can't wait. Thank you so much again for being here, guys. Definitely go check her out. You can see how incredible of an expert she is. She's in the tangible. You guys know that most of the work that I do is in the energetic space. And so I love that Rachel's doing the tangible side too, because you guys need that. And so, yeah, check her out. Check out her freebies. Check out her Instagram. DM her. I'm sure that she would be happy to hear from you. And thank you so much for being here today. All right, guys.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Of course, we'll catch you in the next episode. Bye, everyone. Soul Sister, thank you so much for tuning in to this entire episode today. If you enjoyed this episode, would you do me a favor and leave a quick review? This allows me to reach more people, and if you found value, I know others in your life will too. Also, be sure to share this episode on social media along with your biggest takeaways so I know what resonates most with you and I can keep the good stuff coming. And if you're looking to dive into a deeper connection than this podcast will allow, consider checking out my Rise to Riches experience in the show notes below. I would love to hear how these messages have helped you take one step closer to living your soul-powered life and becoming the wildly wealthy woman. Sis, let's continue to rise together. I'll see you next time. Bye.